So we're super excited to have all of you join today. This will probably last about 30 to 40 minutes. So probably not the full hour. Again, if you have to pop off, no problem. We'll record this, we'll send it to you at the end so you can reference it anyway, and we'll be sending you a bunch of materials too. So just to kick this off today, I want to tell you a little bit about Boss Method, where it came from and why we're even doing this. So after working with, thousands of agents, it became really clear that, some of the stuff we like to teach is a lot about, process and how to use Follow-Up Boss best and all those best practices. But underneath all of that, there's some really important foundations that everybody really needs to follow to be successful. So that's where the Boss Method came from. This is about creating really great, consistent habits so you see consistent results. Eric, you want to chime in?
Cool, yeah, and I think there must be a setting we need to adjust because I can't share my video, so you can hear my voice but not see my smiling face. I am smiling though. Like Megan said, we've had a lot of interactions with our customers. Last year alone, our support team had about 50,000 customer interactions. So we were able to talk to our customer base a lot, learn from the best teams and best agents what they were doing really well, what was working for their business. We saw a lot of questionable accounts, messy accounts. We saw clean accounts in between. So we just learned a lot throughout that process, and we wanted to put something together and share kind of what the results of that were. We get a lot of questions like, hey, what are the best teams doing? What are the best agents doing to be successful? And this is largely that. So super excited to kick this and kind of go through the different rules we have for our Boss Method. Like Megan said, her team works with a ton of our larger team customers and mid-sized team customers. Our support team interacts with our entire customer base. We kind of have a well-rounded, I think, data set, I guess, to pull from here. So I wanted to introduce myself real briefly, and then Megan will introduce herself. So my name is Eric Wantland. I've been managing the support team here for about 3 years. I've been doing similar roles at other companies for about 12 years, mainly in the med tech sphere and some in the web hosting sphere as well. So we have a team of 10 people here at Follow-Up Boss on the customer facing support team. And I'll kick it over to Megan to introduce.
Cool, Eric. I can't find any setting to help you out with that video. I tried. So like Eric, I've been with Follow-Up Boss for a little over 3 years at this point. And my team, I run the success team. So, we train new teams getting started, work with lots and lots of agents. And we also work with some large teams ongoing. So, every week we're working with tons and tons of teams across the board, some large, some small, different phases of their, business life cycle. So we learned so much every time we work with a new team and a new agent as well. So that's me. I probably worked with some of you and maybe not others, but really happy to have you here and really great to meet you today. So we're going to kick this off and with a poll actually, because we'd like to learn a little bit about you first. So
yeah, we're gonna do a brief poll here just to kind of gauge how many of you are spending at least an hour a day inside of Follow-Up Boss. So we kind of want to know how often are you prospecting, how often are you following up with your leads in your network. So if you could answer, that would be awesome because you'll be able to see the results of everyone else's answers once you have submitted your answer. So this is just, there's no right or wrong answer here. It's just really to gauge where everyone's at. So we have a pretty good sample size of people here to draw from. So hopefully everyone can kind of get a good gauge of where some of their peers are at.
Awesome. Lots of responses so far. And it looks like, about a third of you, it's like an hour a day or more, which is awesome. And then another, quarter of you, about 30 to 60 minutes a day. another like 40% of you are inconsistent. So you're the perfect people to have here today for sure. And then some of you barely follow up, and I appreciate your honesty, or humor, or both. So this is awesome. I'm going to end this poll right here, and share the results so you can see that. So it's really interesting to see, but that's right in line with what we see every day. So a lot of times I get the question, from a team lead, say like, I don't know what to do. Like, I don't know what's happening with my leads. Like, people aren't following up, et cetera, et cetera. I usually say like, this is one of two things, right? It's a lack of process and a lack of consistency. So that to me is training. And then, some people are, like, you've got great people on the team, or maybe you're, a really motivated agent, and there are other people that need a little bit more motivation and structure. So again, that's what Boss Method is about, really. So we're going to go to rule 1, actually, of the Boss Method, which is an hour a day. So we could teach you all of the scripts, everything that you should be saying when you get people on the phone, and how to follow up. But if you are not starting with that basic foundation of spending at least an hour a day, right, and time blocking for that, nothing else actually matters. So I can't tell you how often I go into a Follow Boss account and I see all these brand new leads. Somebody's spending a ton of money on leads, but those leads are being followed up with like once, maybe twice, and then nothing's happening. And so making sure you have an hour a day set on your calendar is probably one of the most important takeaways today. Like, when you're done with this session, make sure that you have your time blocked every single day. I recommend doing it on Mondays. So on a Monday, you start, you time block for the week every day. Of course, alter that time when something comes up. You have a closing, you have an inspection, you have a buyer appointment. You have to shift around that time block, but make sure at the end of every day, you can say, hey, I spent an hour prospecting. I spent an hour following up with people in my database, my past clients, my sphere of influence, all of that. So that's probably the most important thing here. Get that done and the rest will follow.
Cool. Move on to rule number 2 here, which is giving every lead a time frame. A big part of our system is being able to basically organize and sort your qualified leads. I would say, 3 out of every 4 interactions with our customers, we have small and large customer bases, obviously different varying sizes of leads. So you have 100 leads in a database and 100,000 leads in a database. There's disparity there. But what I notice often is the stage of those leads is often just lead, which is the default stage that those leads. The stage of the lead is so important. Dan acted webinar just talk about how important lead stages are. It's really difficult to follow up with your leads if you don't actually know what kind of lead they are. Are they buying in 3 months? Are they buying in 6 months? Is this a past client that you worked with? Qualifying the leads that come in or the existing contacts in the database is very, very important. So is how fast you're qualifying and following up with those leads. So when we say give every lead a time frame, what we're referring to there is actually putting the leads into the correct stages. And Megan actually threw it up on the screen here. They're just our recommendations. If you had a boss, you probably can create custom images and kind of have your own time frame. So come up with a system for you. What I would recommend here, making sure that your system is simple, system is consistent. So if you come up with a plan for how you're going to qualify your leads and how you're going to put them in the correct stages to that, you don't need 30 leads in. But as quickly as possible, you finding out, okay, this person is a lead, meaning they're brand new. Are they to qualify into a hot prospect stage and they're going to be ready to move or buy in the next couple months? I need to follow up with them often. So that's just an example, but you should know what stages your leads should be in pretty quickly. And if you have a database that is, 10,000 people in the stage of lead, I would highly recommend going through and sorting those into the correct stages, because it doesn't help you if you don't know who to follow up with. So like Megan said in rule 1, an hour a day is important, but you need to know who you're actually following up with, and what their time frame is for either buying or selling.
Awesome. Yeah, and so I see you guys are sending a lot of questions like at the same time, and because Eric and I are going to be, talking a lot, we'll probably get to your questions, some like during the session, by the way, and some post this session. But somebody brought up a good point. So, asking like, what were we doing before the pandemic? Certainly this matters. And so everything that we're telling you, is sort of a pre-COVID world, sort of. But a lot of these things still ring true. If you're a new agent and you only have a couple of leads, sure, maybe you can't like spend an hour a day prospecting necessarily. Depends. Like maybe you actually can, but certainly that might be different for you. You're building your business. If things have slowed down tremendously because of the pandemic, your follow-up will be different, right? You might not be following up with all of these new leads, but you can be following up with your network. It doesn't mean you're hard selling people. It means that you are still building relationships. And again, think of this as like a benchmark, an hour a day. If you're doing this consistently for 30 minutes a day, it's way better than being completely inconsistent and having no structure. So again, we'll try and answer your questions as much as we can during the session. But if we don't, we will answer you later for sure. So we're moving on to rule 3. Set it, but don't forget it. This is a pretty hardy rule. There's a lot to this. So we're going to have a ton of follow-up resources for you in the coming weeks to talk about this a little bit more. But the idea here is that with Follow-Up Boss, you have the option to use some automation, right? Automation is key to helping you get some things done at scale. However, personalization is very, very important too. So you should have action plans set up to engage your brand new leads. Of course, if you decide not to, you decide not to. But in most cases, it's a really, really good idea. An auto text going out, some emails. But don't forget about those people. Don't just think, hey, I've got this plan running, like I never have to pick up the phone and call. Still pick up the phone and call, right? You want to set up those smart lists in your Follow-Up Boss database to see who's on your website, who's, searching for homes, who's favoriting properties and all of that. But don't just have that list set up. You should be following up with those people as well, right? Make sure that you're doing your part. And then also schedule those bulk emails, those batch emails every week. When you have new listings, you have open houses. I know the market is different right now. But we're talking about, what normally happens. So, and this is the time to get into good habits and be thinking about this stuff. So retarget your old leads on a monthly basis with a batch email. You set this stuff up, you can schedule emails, but don't forget about them as well. Don't forget to pick up the phone. Don't forget to look at your batch email reporting to see who actually engaged with your emails, right? There's so much that you can do here. So before kicking off rule 4, we're going to dive into another question.
Yeah, so at the bottom of your Zoom toolbar, you should have a little Q&A button. If you type in, I see many of you have found that. We just wanted to ask, I'm going to do this in a poll fashion because we wanted to do a little shout out here of just you guys know what the rest of your peers are using. But what is your primary marketing tool right now? So what is the most successful marketing activity you've ever done or that you are using? Is it social? Is it a newsletter? Is it a community event? We kind of just want to hear what you're focusing on right now for marketing. I see social media, door knocking. Those are good ones. A lot of social media. Zillow looks like a community email newsletter. That's awesome. A lot of social media. That's a good one. Mailings. Working on the referral and sphere. Weekly emails, open houses. And I'm going to try to plug in as well to my Ethernet here, because I've heard a few people say there's some audio issues. So I want to make sure we get that cleared up. Awesome. Thanks for sharing all that feedback. This is really helpful. I see a lot of people doing a lot of phone calls, Facebook, personalized videos, newsletters. So there's a good spread of marketing channels here, which is awesome to see. So that brings us to rule 4 here, which is one marketing activity a week. This is something that often gets overlooked and can sometimes be an overwhelming thing, especially if you are a new agent or a new business, and even for existing teams and existing agents. When we say one marketing activity a week, we really mean one marketing activity a week. So I think there's this pressure oftentimes to make sure you have your Facebook and your Snapchat and your Instagram and your TikTok or whatever everyone else uses these days, your newsletter, your mailings. You're trying to do all this stuff and keep up, and it can be really exhausting to check all of these marketing boxes that it should have. So instead, we kind of recommend mastering at least one first. So pick or each week a day to go over your marketing and choose one channel that you're going to focus on. Whether that is one social media channel or it's doing your weekly newsletter or some other kind of marketing activity, choose one and make it consistent. So you'll see that theme a lot throughout the Boss Method webinar here is we're going to talk about consistency, because that is the most important thing of all of this. If you're not doing it consistently, you're going to have inconsistent results. So that's definitely a key of the Boss Method. So I would say too, when you're going through and scheduling your marketing activities, that you have a plan in place to review your results, and you have a goal in mind as well. So when you are working on, let's say, your Instagram, planning on making an Instagram post a week on Friday, that's a great goal. How do you know if you're successful on that goal? Is it the amount of views you get, the amount of follows you have? And what are you planning to do with that following once you build that up? Same thing with newsletters. If you are building a following or an email chain, and you want to kind of build up your email list, and you don't know what you're going to do with that email list, that doesn't help you very much. So make sure you have a plan in place for what you're doing with each marketing activity. And again, just choose one until you master that. It's great to branch out once you've mastered the one, but it's nothing worse than seeing 4 dead social media channels in a newsletter that happens once every 6 months. So focus on that one marketing activity, make it consistent.
Awesome. So a lot of your questions, and sorry to anybody that it said I answered live and I didn't. It's just me clicking the wrong button. So I wanted to answer a couple of questions that are sort of about what we're talking about right now with regard to all these marketing activities. So no, you can't see all the answers. We will have access to them. So we're going to share all this stuff in our follow-up email. So the best ideas here that people have shared, things like that. So it'll be really helpful to you when you're asking about different campaigns, like have we created them, will we create them? Thanks for asking those questions, because let us know what you need and we can create that content for you for sure. We are recording this. I know I keep getting asked that question, and we will send that recording to you as well. And in terms of batch email reporting, you can see that under admin batch emails. So there's your reporting for those emails. Like when you go to send them, you want to see how many opens, how many clicks. Like remember, I bring this up probably every week. When you send a batch email, the content of the email matters, because, of course, if your content's not great, the next time you send an email to someone, they probably won't open it. But first, you have to have a really great subject line. So play around with those. Subject lines can be quick questions. You can reference people by name, but don't, and thank you for your comment about me saying, certainly you want to make sure that you're thinking about that subject line so people even come into your door in the first place. So, okay. The last rule for grow your sales is turn every deal into another deal, right? So often I am working with teams, and basically what I see, and I ask these questions regularly, is what do you do post-sale? Once that transaction is closed, do you have a plan for that? Do you have a plan for reaching out, post closing? I can tell you, I've seen it personally and I see it professionally. This doesn't happen a lot of the time. There's no plan. So we've got a great post-closing plan inside of Follow Up Boss that you can use. It's got several tasks that assign to you to do something, whether it's sending, a handwritten card or something else. You can certainly use that. You can edit that plan. You can create your own. But the idea is have a plan, stand out, be of value post-sale. It's the best time to get referrals. I'm always shocked when people aren't doing this. And I think it's just because a lot of times, in real estate and many industries, you're kind of going after the next thing that's happening right now. So you're just being very, very reactive versus proactive. But that proactive follow-up is really what matters here. So certainly if you don't have a plan now, we have one that you can utilize, that you can edit. You can create your own as well. So this one is key. It's a golden opportunity to get referrals right when you've closed a transaction, here. Awesome. So thanks for all of your questions, your feedback, and the rest of it. The next piece of the BOSS method is build your team. For solo agents that are on with us today, there are so many useful tips for you here as well. Everything pretty much except the first one, the first rule. So stick around. There's plenty to learn here too.
Cool. I'll kick it off for the team segment here, or building your team rather. Rule number one is always be recruiting. That is something that often gets overlooked when building a team, but it's something that's really important. And I'm going to talk about why that is important. So I've seen the best sides of teams in the industry. You have Justin in Calgary with Remax, who focused just on his team culture, and he grew this team that not only has a great culture, but is also supportive, positive. They cheer each other on as they're making sales, and they're there to kind of pick each other up when they're going through rough times. That's one side of the coin. I've also seen the flip side where you have teams going through rough breakups because they didn't really focus on hiring the correct people or bringing the correct people onto their team, and it just creates a bumpy road. So I would ask yourself this question: what kind of team do you want to build? Whether you have an existing team or you're starting out and you're going to build a new team, you need to know what kind of team you want to build. What kind of culture do you want to have internally? What you're going to be focused on? What kind of a leader you're going to be? Even though this is talking specifically about real estate teams, it kind of crosses over into multiple industries. And one thing I've seen and what I focus on with my team is I want to make sure that when I am reaching out to people or interviewing people or screening people to bring on to the team, I make sure that they're going to be focused on the same things that the company is focused on, that your team is focused on, making sure I hire people that are a good culture fit, they're going to work well with my existing people, and of course, people with the right skill set. That's a huge piece. You need to have people with the right skill set. So just making sure you have the right approach on recruiting. When we say always be recruiting, you should always be on the lookout and always be trying to find some of these new agents to bring on, making sure you have a list of target agents, making sure you have a good value offer for those agents. You want agents to join your team, you need to give them a reason to want to join your team. We see a lot of turnover amongst teams. That's a huge part of the industry. We see it less so with more successful and established teams that have really focused on the identity of their team and their organization and their culture. So just making sure you have a good value offer for those new agents that you bring on board is really important. And then following an outreach plan, how are you going to be going after these agents that you want to bring onto your team, making sure you have a good plan in place to do that.
Yeah, awesome. To piggyback off of that, we see a lot of turnover. We hear about a lot of turnover, and I think, Eric is right on, spot on, and like figuring out what do you want that team to be, who should you have on your team? And actually, when you have a team, always making sure that you are checking to see how people are doing. We'll get to that in another rule, but the next piece of this is rule 2. So build a system your team will follow. So you've built this awesome team. You figured out who you want on your team. You think you have an awesome team anyway. You think you hired the right people. But without a system inside of Follow Up Boss, right, you basically are kind of just letting people run wild. And I've got to say, running a team myself, I know that if you don't create any systems, you know, everybody's looking for some process. So this isn't just about you saying, hey, you know, you've got to do A, B, and C just because. It's because you're trying to help make everybody's work easier. So that's what the process should be for, right? You are giving everybody on your team a very clear, simple, repeatable process and workflow to follow every day. So, you know, there's nothing more frustrating, I don't think, you know, as an agent going into, say, a CRM and looking at thousands of contacts and having to know where to start. That's not helpful. But if you build a system that's easy, your team will follow it. And the same as if you're a solo agent, you should also have a system that you are following every single day. And of course, you're always going to change that process, you know, tweak it, but start with something, right? So a lot of times when we're training inside of Follow Up Boss, we focus very much on smart lists because that's all of your proactive outreach. Talks about everything that we've mentioned already, making sure your leads have the right time frame, making sure people are in a list and going through that on a daily or weekly basis, depending on that list. So process is so, so important here, especially when you have a team. It's for accountability, but ultimately it's just making it a whole lot easier for your team to actually do the great work that they can do.
Cool. Move on to rule 3 here, which is be the boss of your business. That sounds like an obvious thing, but it's not as obvious as you may think. Just because you have a team doesn't make you a boss necessarily. And what I mean by that is leader should be multiple things and not hires a team and hopes to kind of wing it and hopes everything will work out at the end. We see a lot of teams winging it and hoping that they'll have results. Some get lucky, many don't. So making sure that you're informed is really key here. So as the leader of your business, you should be informed with a few different things that I'll mention here. The first is your team's performance. So do you know who your top performers are? Are you coaching your performers? Are you praising your top performers? And well, you should be praising all your performers. Praise and recognition for the people that are doing well. Knowing who those performers are is key to your business. We see a lot of teams where they're not sure which agents are doing well. They don't even know what some of their agents are doing some of the time. So making sure that you're informed is really, really key. So we recommend scheduling a block of time for performance review each week and just making sure you are informed on that. Another key piece to being informed is knowing which lead sources are the most successful. So if you have leads coming in from Facebook, from Google Ads, from Zillow, from Realtor.com, from your website, and whatever other lead sources you're using, do you know which lead sources are the most successful? Do you know what percentage of deals are coming from each lead source? You should know all that. If you don't, I would encourage you to go find that out as soon as possible. Why would you want to spend more money with lead source A if lead source B is your better lead source, for example? So you should be informed on that. Review your results, so making sure that you're looking at those results and making the necessary changes. There's going to be hard decisions you have to make, especially when it comes to the people on your team. Some people may not be a good fit and some people may be a great fit. So making sure you're making the right calls there and the tough decisions when you have to. We see a lot of team leaders a bit timid on making tough decisions there. The kind of trickle effect that just kind of maybe an agent that should be not on the team stays on the team for longer than they should, and it creates turnover. Just making sure that you're staying up on that, being the boss of your business. That's what that is referring. And then making changes in regards to your spend. So your spend is really important. So for your marketing, for your lead sources that you're bringing leads in from, you should know, as I said, where each lead is coming from and then making necessary changes on that. So if you have a successful lead source, you should know that and be putting more money into that and maybe less in another area. And I would also highly recommend doing a lot of trial and error. So I think a lot of people are afraid to take risks in the business. Taking risks, as long as you are informed, is never a bad thing. So testing out a new lead source, a new marketing channel, are all good things as you're informed.
Awesome. So we have two more rules to get through, and then we're going to wrap up by the end, asking you another question and getting some feedback. So stick with us if you can. We're almost done here. So rule 4 here is set specific goals. You know, I think there's a lot of content out there related to real estate, not real estate, about setting goals. But it's good advice, you know, so you should know, you know, how many transactions you want to do this quarter, this, you know, in the next 6 months, this year. You should know that volume, that number, and have a goal. You know, this isn't about, you know, some people are like goal crushers, right? They want to, you know, double their business every year. Other people, you know, don't. And that doesn't matter. But what does matter is that you have a goal and then you back into that goal, right? So you should have quarterly and yearly business goals. Everybody on your team should as well. So you should be working with all of your agents to set up those goals, to know how many appointments, you know, new buyer appointments they need to set and a certain time frame to reach those goals. So spend the time to actually write this down. You don't just want it in your head. You want a number, you want it to be concrete, and you want to be able to go back to that and back into it. So I can't stress this one enough. Personally, professionally, like, just be specific here. It will help you so much.
Cool. And this is the last rule here. This is actually the rule I'm most excited about. So one of the cool things about being here for as long as Megan and I have been is we've been able to see and work with teams who have started with maybe 2 people and have grown and become kind of stepped into their own. They have their own identity now. They're part of their community. So that's been really cool to see. We haven't mentioned this a lot during the webinar, but things obviously are not business as usual right now for a lot of people, but it still doesn't mean you can't be working on a lot of these things, especially your brand. So brand is bigger than just your logo and your kind of your name on the billboard. It's your identity in the community. So do you have a brand plan? Do you know what you want your identity to be in the community? Do you know how you want to give the community? Do you know what partnerships you want to have? So a lot of the top teams that we see have really clear brands and identity in their communities. And I know if you're starting out, it doesn't mean you can go have a partnership with the Lakers tomorrow. That's just not realistic. But making sure that you have solid to-dos with different milestones for building your brand is really important. So you want to be a part of your community. Word of mouth is huge in this industry. You all know that, so I don't need to tell you that, but it's a huge thing. And so being a part of your community is big. So how can you give back? Are there events that you can attend, you and your team can attend? Are there strategic partnerships that you can go after, maybe restaurants or local businesses? Do you have a plan in place for your advertising in your community? How are you reaching the people in your immediate area? So knowing your market is key there. I know everyone on this webinar has a different market, and it's definitely a different type of brand you'll probably want to build in each market. So setting up those to-dos, those regular to-dos with dates attached. One thing we have definitely learned at Follow Up Boss is if you don't have dates attached to your to-dos, they probably won't get done, or they won't get done on time. So making sure you have real clear to-dos for you and your team associated with your brand building, and then meeting those deadlines. And of course, executing your plan, making sure you stick to it throughout the year. Brand building can be tough because it's slow and it's really hard to realize the results of that right away. But making sure you're consistent with the type of brand you want to build is really key there. So be consistent, execute your plan, have dates with to-dos, and then get your team on board with that same brand plan. I think you're muted there, Megan.
Oh, yep, I was muted. Thank you. This was meant to be an introduction to, you know, the BOSS method. There's so much more to come, a ton of resources. We have, like I mentioned, we have interviews coming down the line and set up already. We have workshops that are coming to you. So we're working on a smart list workshop right now, some database organization stuff, tons of interviews with top teams and top agents and how they do all of this. Downloadable resources, worksheets, a whole lot of stuff. You guys have some really great questions in the Q&A, and we haven't been able to go through all of those. But I guess the last question we'd like to ask you is, we want to give you what you need as well. We think we have a good idea what people need, but please type in that Q&A. Let us know what kind of content you'd like to see from us, so we can plan for that. Certainly some people are asking about some action plans. Where do those exist? Like, we like more of those. Tell us what kinds you'd like. For the post-closing plan, you can find that in your account under admin action plans. It already exists there. Follow-up bosses shared a number of plans. We also have an action plan library with a ton of resources. But let us know what you'd like to see in terms of webinar content, workshops, resources, so that we can help prioritize those things based on, you know, what you all need as well. Awesome. Keep all the ideas coming. We thank you so much for joining us today. Again, this is just the beginning. For those of you that haven't seen this yet, we also have a brand new resource center. So you can go to the video library here, right? And you can see, you know, everything that we've got published. We're going to have some new getting started videos. Those are coming. We have workshops. We have Tech Tuesdays that Eric hosts, actually. So lots of great content. I also recommend some of these customer stories. These are really, really awesome as well. And then if I go just a step back here, you'll go to our new resource center, and you can check out our blog too. So, you know, if you have downtime during this time, it's really great to come here and see and learn from other folks. Some really, really awesome interviews. So check them out. And certainly, again, let us know what you need, because we like to be really responsive to the community. And we certainly will be with you all. So thanks for joining us today. Eric, any last words?
No, this is great. We had a lot of you here, and it was great spending some time with you. Sorry you couldn't get on video there. I know you all wanted to see my face, but maybe next time. It's been a pleasure, though.
Have a great day, everyone.